Hey listeners, and welcome to the inaugural episode of Teammates, a Lenk Media original podcast. I'm your host, Nick Lensander. Throughout this episode and the many to come, we are going to break down what it really means to be a teammate, both on and off the field. We are going to touch on many different phases of sports, real life, business, and the perseverance it takes to be successful. Our guests are going to bring unique, never-before-heard perspectives of what it really means to be teammates. Thank you for tuning in. Sit back and enjoy.
Hello and welcome to Teammates, a Lenk Media original podcast. I'm Nick Lensander, and this is going to be a fun one. I'm here with our guest, Nolan Tisdale. Nolan, how you doing?
Great, as always. Saturday morning.
It is 10:45 a.m. on a Saturday morning. What's better than Saturday morning, right?
I mean, you just got done with a hard week. Hopefully, you're working, you're employed. You did, or if you're not, you did something this week that
something productive
inspired you, and you felt good this morning.
Exactly.
I felt dangerous this morning and had a Modelo.
Feeling very dangerous.
Feeling dangerous.
So just a quick intro about this podcast. We're going to talk about a lot of different topics, but mainly about, it's called Teammates. So, sports were a big part of my life growing up. And so we're going to talk a lot of sports, talk to former teammates of mine, and talk about sports, life, perseverance, how they all intertwine together, why being a teammate is important, both in sports and in life. So without further ado, we'll get into it. Thank you for listening. This podcast is brought to you by Lenk Media. All right. So Nolan, tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell the audience who you are, just in a little spiel.
Okay. In short, I'm pretty fun-loving guy, born here in Santa Barbara, California, born and raised. I've known Nick forever. We've known each other since third grade, since I made the switch from public to private institutions. And
yep.
From there, we've just been friends ever since. And, generally, I love sports, love teamwork, enjoy working towards a common goal. And,
Yeah. So as Nolan said, we've known each other for a long time, since elementary school, went to high school together. We're both from Santa Barbara, so born and raised here. We both played a lot of sports growing up. Yeah. So I guess we'll start with Nolan's story a little bit. So tell us a little bit about you growing up into sports, whether it be, from your parents teaching you sports or just at a young age getting involved in it. Could be any sport. I know we both played football. Yeah. You're big into basketball, tennis, so I guess wherever you want to start with that, just growing up into sports, how was your experience with that?
I mean, I've always loved it personally, just because I think I was just a naturally competitive person, and I was just somewhat fascinated by kind of the movements of it, and instantly knew that it was like me versus other people, and I was just very driven to be like, I need to beat this person. And my dad just loved sports too, so he was just like, it pretty much wasn't even like, even if I didn't like sports, it was not really an option. It was like, you're getting enrolled in sports because of, he knew the values you could learn from it, or the lessons you could learn from it. So, I mean, I ended up liking it, of course, but I mean, I'll never forget. It was like we were in like first or second grade, and I was just me at Canalino before I met you.
Before Mount Carmel, yeah.
And my dad was the coach of our team. We were flag football. I was playing QB. It's just like that was just what he wanted me to play. And but our best player, his name was Gus, and I remember mid-game, he falls on the ground, gets the wind knocked out of him, and he's like standing next to it happens right at my dad's feet, and my dad just like looks at him and he goes, suck it up to like a second grader. And the kid was getting ready to cry. And then all of a sudden he heard my dad say it. He's like, oh, what? And it was like, you know, that's the type of dad that I had. But I mean, he's, you know, ultra competitive and just got me introduced in sports. So I just automatically loved it, especially with, he made it fun. So, I mean, he introduced me to it. And then from there, I just loved it and then just focused on it and, you know, played basketball in the backyard every day after school. Yeah. So, I mean, that's how I kind of got into it. And ever since then, it was just kind of like, you know, a chain reaction pretty much. It was just like, you know, I just kept doing it. At recess, you know, we'd always play basketball or football at, you know, Mount Carmel or, and then we played sports together. So, yeah, I just kind of got into it after my dad.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. That's a good story. I mean, at that age, you don't necessarily know, like your dad saying "suck it up." You know, you're not really aware of like what's going on really. So you just, I mean, your natural reaction is to like have pain and things like that. You're not really taught to mask it.
At the end of the day, though, I mean, like, you know, you can sit around and like, you know, oh yeah, this person got hurt and we should feel bad for them. But at the end of the day, if you want to get something done, you're going to have to suck it up. Yeah, like you're just going to have to deal with it and go through it.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's pain. Yeah. I mean, sports is a great example of a physical thing that you're doing where you experience pain and you have to work and fight through it. You know, it's part of adversity and things like that.
That's football, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's the whole sport essentially.
It doesn't feel too great like hitting a 300-pound dude.
Yeah. Right, exactly. So I mean, yeah, that's that's football. So that's you growing up into sports. So then kind of transitioning into high school and football. We both went to the same high school, so we both played football together. Yeah. So tell us a little bit about like your high school experience. I know like I have we love, our coaching staff there. Yeah. And so just tell us a little bit about that experience for you. High school and then kind of transitioning from that into your next step after that.
Yeah. I mean, so in high school, heading into high school, I was hyper focused on basketball. That was like my thing. I was like, okay, I'm going to be focused on basketball. I was just obsessed with that. I mean, I would go to the YMCA, my Santa Barbara YMCA every weekend. I would do 2 to 3 hours, mainly focusing on dribbling drills and shooting. I was obsessed with dribbling drills. So I would probably do about like 60 dribbling drills a day. And these were like drills, like if you see Steph Curry in warm-ups, he has a little tennis ball and he'll throw the ball up from his left hand and then he'll cross it over and catch it with his right hand. And then he'll do between the legs, behind the back, and then he'll do a bunch of variations. And then he'll have like 2 balls and then he'll cross them over at the same time, all different types of drills. And so I was doing that because I was like watching these guys, like their warm-ups. Like I would watch on YouTube, I'd just Google YouTube videos, dribbling drills, and I was just obsessed with it. So going into high school, I was like, okay, basketball's my thing. I'm going to do that. And then my freshman year, I was like, you know what, like I'll go out for football, like, So I went out for football. And like quarterback's always been my thing. Like I just think that that's kind of what I was supposed to do, especially given my body type and my athleticism or lack thereof. Like, I mean, like I'm not slow, but I'm typically not like fast.
For everyone listening, he's a pocket passer.
Yeah, pocket passer. Feet, I'll throw first.
Yeah,
I mean, I think I maybe ran the ball. I think one time, like. I think I ran the ball literally one time at Bishop.
I'd say a great comparison, Mac Jones.
Yeah, there you go, Mac Jones. So yeah, limited physical ability, but you gotta make it. You find a way to make it.
You find a way to make it happen.
So I was like, I'll go for football, and then first practice, our buddy Brandon, it's very quite clear that it's he's gonna play quarterback. And, I was like, well, what am I going to do? So I was just like, after first day, I just like, you know what, this isn't going to work because I'm not going to play quarterback. I just realized it. I mean, I probably should have competed, but I realized that it probably wasn't going to be necessarily like a winning venture for me. So, and he was more physically mature than me anyways. He could probably, I mean, I was like a buck 04 going into high school.
Brandon, shout out Brandon, if you're listening to this, but he's a beast in high school.
So then I went and I was like, okay, I'm going to do cross country just to stay in shape for basketball. And then I was like, tried that out for 2 weeks. Hated it. And I was like, you know what? Like, honestly, I can get the same conditioning from just practicing basketball. And so I did that. Focused on basketball that first year. Enjoyed it. Was on JVs that first year with, Ben Rivera. He was a great coach for us. Mentor as well. And I learned a lot. And then following year, I was like, okay, I was kind of in the same position. I was like, man, do I just want to stick with basketball? And then I thought about it. And then Mr. Flanagan came up and he was like, do you want to play? Like, we kind of need a quarterback. And then some of the guys around school were like, you want to, like, we need a quarterback. You should play. So I was like, man, all right. I really love basketball at this point. And so then I finally took the plunge and did it. Thank God I did it because I loved it. Yeah. But, and so ended up playing there. And then it just kind of was like hard to balance between basketball and football because I loved them both.
Right.
And at like, in football, I was like, when it was football season, I'm like, I like football more than basketball. And then I get to basketball, I'm like, man, I don't know. Maybe I like that. So that's kind of it. I mean, and so from there, I was like, my mindset was like, I'm playing these two sports and my ultimate goal is like, all right, we need to win a CIF championship. Like if we're not trying to do that, then what are we here for?
Right.
So like, that's kind of like I was always like driven by winning a championship.
The win mentality. Yeah. Just like you were when you were younger, it just kind of, transition with you throughout your life.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a good story. I mean, it's tough. I mean, if you're in high school or playing multiple sports, picking one, it's difficult, but at some point you have to kind of give your all to one of them if you want to master it,
Yeah, I think there is a point there. I have heard some like weird studies where it's like kids who were exposed to lots of sports at a young age, not necessarily through high school, but at some point in their life were exposed to lots of sports. They actually, when they choose the sport of interest to just focus on, they actually end up being more successful because their brain has been challenged in more ways, so they can figure out not necessarily the most conventional way to like figure out a problem.
Right.
So at some point you need to specialize, but yeah.
Yeah, and that makes sense. So I mean, this kind of transitions to life a little bit because you trying a bunch of different sports, you're faced with a lot of different obstacles, things you haven't seen before. Different rules, different people, different teammates, different coaches, a lot of different variables in all these different sports. And, you may not like one of them, but you're not going to know that until you try it. And then you can take that like as a learning lesson for the other stuff that you do try. Transitioning that to life, it's like if after you finish college or whatever you're doing in your life track in your career, how do you know what you love to do unless you've tried a bunch of stuff and, failed at some stuff and giving you that knowledge and experience to know, what you want to do.
I mean, I think you can kind of have an idea what you want to do but I mean, ultimately it gets refined through trial and error,
right. Exactly.
I mean, some people think that they want to do something their whole life and then they get to it and they're like, what?
I hate this. Yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
And, some people, and sometimes there's pressure in the family or, if you've grown up in things and you try it and you don't like it,
Yeah. I mean, things sometimes like at a high level, they seem appealing and they seem like, that fits me.
Right.
But then when you get down to the nitty gritty details of like what actually has to get, like what actually goes into doing that job or, doing that thing that you thought you liked.
Right.
It can be eye-opening pretty much,
And when you have to wake up every day and there's someone else that loves doing it on the other side, you're not going to work as hard as them.
No.
And so there's no way you're going to get anywhere near where your like goal is if you're not going to work as hard as them because you don't like it as much as they do. So
yeah.
I mean, so there's a lot of nuances of that, but sports definitely translates to life in that way. So from high school, you kind of transitioned to college, to Santa Barbara City College.
Yeah.
You played football there. How was your experience there? I know you through high school, once you started playing, you started, loving football like itself. So I know you want to keep playing.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about your college football experience.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that I liked at the end of high school, I liked football more, and I also realized that I had a little bit more opportunity there,
right? Just
because at the quarterback position, I don't need to be 6'5" dunking the ball,
right?
Like, I mean,
exactly.
We're lucky to touch the rim sometimes. Yeah. But I was good at throwing, so I was like, okay, that's like kind of
skill and opportunity, and
So I kind of combined those things, like okay, and then so I did that, and that was an eye-opening experience as well, because you're exposed to here in Santa Barbara, most people at our school are from Santa Barbara, and you have a couple people who moved in, but it's a tight community, especially at Bishop, because it's like 200 kids or so.
Yeah.
And then now you're at City College with a bunch of people from a bunch of different backgrounds. So I mean, I tried it out, football and CC. The ultimate goal was to transfer to a 4-year,
right,
maybe D2, D1, AA. But you realize real quick how good other people are,
right?
And especially like given systems too, like we just said, I wasn't necessarily a runner, like
right.
That's not my first option, but the offense that we were running at the time definitely would the offense would be better off with a quarterback that could run,
right?
So it was like there's that, and but I mean in college it was just a higher level, and
right. And I guess you must have been able to have some sort of takeaway, and like in the way like you see things running and the way you see people do things.
Yeah, I mean the general takeaway for me in college was, there is a significant change in athletic ability. The level of work has to increase. The playbooks are usually, the defensive concepts are a little bit more complex. At Bishop, we actually had a pretty complex offense,
right?
But in terms of like the concepts that you're facing, are are generally more complex. Yep. And a lot of these guys that are in these like situations are of the mindset that they are going to a Division I school and they are going to then go pro after that.
Right.
Statistically, it doesn't make sense.
Right.
Like what percent of people actually get to the pros would actually what percent of people actually make the pros of the people that try? And then, so the percentages from high school to college, it's something like 1% or something that play further, or a couple percent. I would think it's even less.
Yeah. So it's a small percentage that go to play in college, and then from college to the pros, and we're talking about football, but it can translate to other sports as well. The percentages are like 0.0 something percent from college. The best players, you were typically if you're playing college sport, you were pretty good in high school,
Yeah.
Like you, I guess it depends on what league and different players you're in, but most people, like, you played at a pretty decent level in high school to play in college somewhere.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's the percentages are not for you.
But you realize real quick, like a lot of these guys, that's their mindset though.
Right. Yeah.
And so
for sure,
regardless of whether they make it or not,
you're right.
Regardless of whether they even make it, which the vast majority of them don't make it.
Yep.
Like I think I know probably one or two that made it to like the NFL level.
Right.
Like even remotely close to that.
Right.
Like the fact that they have that mindset raises the level of play that you have to get to.
Right.
So, that's what I realized. I'm like, oh yeah, okay. These guys this is their life.
Yeah. And absolutely. And so if you're, if like, the saying is, if you're, the smartest one in the car, you're in the wrong car.
Yeah.
So, being surrounded by people that are better than you definitely, pushes you as a person and in every aspect, pretty much. I mean, it's definitely, you know, when like aspirations of going like pro, you know, mastering something essentially. And, you know, I mean, that's all aspects of life, you know, whatever like field you're in, you know, the who you hang out with the most, you'll start to see, you know, yourself and your successes based upon who you surround yourself with. And, so, I mean, I mean,
so if I had to summarize just the kind of whole sports process, I mean, at the end of the day, I did it for the love of it, just because I, you know, and I think that people along the way did it because they loved it too. And the longer that you do it tends to show you love it a little bit more than others.
Right.
And you also have to combine that with ability. So it's not just driven by love. You have to have the ability to do it. But as you get older, it comes less of, I mean, as you get older, competency rises because the people that have gotten that far are usually pretty competent.
Right.
And so, you know, I think that's kind of how that relates to life is the same way. It's like, you know, the people that are in the positions they're there because, and they're still there after all this because they have some level of competency. And so you're kind of matched up against them.
So I'll get into my story here in a second, but one of my coaches in college, so one of my coaches in college, shout out Bob Diaco, he taught us about the 4 stages of competence. Yeah. So there's unconscious incompetence, which is you not knowing that you're doing something wrong. There's conscious incompetence. You know you're doing something wrong, but you still do it.
Yeah.
And then there's conscious competence, which you now know more, and then your actions align with that, doing something right, or you're able to do it well because you're now the knowledge that you've had, then it lines up with that. And then there's unconscious competence, which is basically doing it without thinking, like breathing, you know? And so at a certain level, a lot of these skills become automatic for people. Yeah. And I mean, you know, a great example is Steph Curry.
Yeah. So that's actually who I was exactly thinking about.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, like his shooting motion, which is a very difficult thing to shoot threes. I mean, it's just difficult. I mean, it's a difficult thing, but he makes it so automatic. He has unconscious competence. Like he's done it so many times. It is like breathing.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's second nature. It's drilled in by repetition.
Exactly. So yeah, no. So if you guys want to look up the chart, it's the 4 stages of competence. I can toss on the screen for those of you watching on YouTube. All right. So, I mean, that was a great summarization of your sports experience growing up and things of that nature. So for me, it was, I kind of mirrored Nolan a lot in certain ways. You know, we like were in the same places. We played for the same coaches, things like that. We both played tennis I played a little bit longer than he did. He played tennis also in high school.
Yeah.
I joined the basketball team. I wasn't a basketball player by any means. I didn't really know much about it. I remember going to the first basketball practice in high school, and I was the most uncoordinated person. I couldn't make a layup. So that was just,
I mean, you're not giving yourself enough credit. There were a lot worse people.
Don't worry. Okay,
I'm not going to drop any names, but any Bishop alum,
we
all know who we're thinking about here.
So I wasn't the worst person, but I wasn't good by any stretch of the imagination, and I was very overwhelmed. I'd never been thrown into a situation like that where I didn't like know really what's going on at all, and you're learning on the fly basically. Yeah. And because I never practiced it at all. Yeah. And I grew up in like a tennis and golf family. My dad's from Europe, so not like an American sports family. Yeah. So I kind of pushed myself into that realm of it.
Yeah.
So again, I was super overwhelmed. I never played football growing up. I started playing basketball. Tennis I played in high school, and then I got into basketball, and then football I didn't start playing until my junior year of high school. So I never really like thought about playing until I like thought for myself. I was like, there's a lot of different things that go into the sport, and there's a lot of hype around it, and there's a lot of, so I mean, I probably didn't know what I was getting myself into, but I wasn't the most like football type of guy. Like I was pretty dorky in high school, so you wouldn't like put your finger on like me being like a football player. But so I went out for the football team my junior year, and I mean, it was fun. That was our first year. Like we went to playoffs that year, right?
Yeah, we did. Yeah, when we played Sierra Canyon first round.
That's right.
And that's when Kylie and Kendall Jenner were rooting for us. Remember that?
Yes, that's right.
They were rooting just for. They switched teams just for us.
That's right.
And we pretty much I mean, I felt bad for their team because they had a little number 7, number 4. I think you were number 90 something too.
Yeah,
you 94.
I was 67.
67.
Yeah, in high school. Yeah.
Oh, that's right.
I was 94 in college.
That's right. Sorry, I was getting it backwards. Anyways, the Jenners were huge fans of us, and we had to say no. We had to say no. We're Bishop loyal.
I know. All right, so our junior year, I joined the team. I was essentially, I was learning football, so I wasn't, very involved in the game itself, but I was involved in practice and got to know the guys and, the work ethic and, that kind of stuff, starting to get my feet wet in football. Then my senior year, I don't know, I was kind of thinking about a lot of different things. I came out late my senior year to try for football because I had kind of thought I was like leaning more towards basketball, to, like put a little more time into trying to do that. But then, I just missed the whole thing too much. And so I ended up coming out my senior year late. It was fun. I played a little bit more than I did in my junior year. Senior year, we were, 11-2 or something like that?
Yeah.
Like we had a really good team that year.
Yeah, we were. And, you came out pretty much, and what was so funny about it was you were like on the fence, and then Crawford and I had a talk about whether we should have you on the team, and because I know that what he was worried about, from what I can remember, was setting the precedent that people can just, skip the training camp and the Hell Week and all that sort of stuff,
right,
and then play,
right.
And so we were talking about it, and then we just felt like I think we kind of commonly agreed that the net benefit, there would be a net benefit rather than a net negative. And ultimately, it's better for you, the person who wants to do it. It's your last year.
Right.
I think probably maybe if it had been maybe you were a sophomore, it would have been different.
Right.
But it's your last year. You know that football teaches you a lot. And if you don't necessarily get, it's an opportunity for you to learn a lot and as an individual. And it's also a benefit to the team. The more players, we always didn't have enough players, right? So there's two things. And we realized that, we'll make it, this is a little bit different.
It was a net benefit. And I mean, it wasn't like I was like starting, so I wasn't like playing a ton.
Well, right.
But
and it wasn't like you were going to just immediately
taking someone's job.
Work, and it was like, you're going to have to work to get to a spot. And it's like, it's hard. I mean, you realize that it's like football is not a sport that, you can just pick up, and especially if you don't have any experience, like as limited experience as you have, and just start playing unless you're like, unless you're like a significantly like great athlete. And like, no offense, but like you're no Usain Bolt, right?
No, I'm no. Trust me, I'm not the biggest at. Like through like the end of, I didn't even peak like size wise at the end of high school. So like my senior year of college wasn't even like, I wasn't finished growing as like physically. So after that year, I thought I would never play football again, essentially. I went to Pratt Institute, shout out, in Brooklyn, New York. I ended up playing D3 college basketball for a little bit while I was there. And then I kind of just got this inkling that I turned out to be 6'4", and I think playing basketball was like 220 or something like that. But I thought I could put on like size with like lifting, and I started getting into lifting. I mean, I'd never really lifted growing up or anything until, we get football in high school. So I got into lifting, and I kind of just decided to like try to play, which, is kind of out of left field. But I was sitting in one of my basketball teammates' room, and he told me about his friend that was on the UConn football team. And I was like, I could do that. And then, full circle. So me and Nolan, I'll put it on the screen on YouTube, but we made some like training videos in the off season at Santa Barbara City College. He's a quarterback, and I'd never played tight end in my life. And so, but I thought I had the hands, and my body developed into like a tight end kind of like form. So I was like, all right, well, I'm going to try to be a tight end. So I had Nolan throw me some balls. We videotaped it, and I sent out tape to a bunch of schools back east to potentially transfer to. And you remember like, going and throwing and making those tapes.
That was wild, because like ultimately like the most important thing that coaches look for is like, what do you do on film?
Right.
Like in a game situation, because you play the game.
That's
what it actually is.
Right.
And you didn't even like, when you were in high school, you played like defensive end.
I played D end and O-line. I never played
O-line. And it was like, so you didn't really even have film to show.
Right.
And then now we're just making videos at Santa Barbara City College fields.
I know.
Spring what?
Just
winter break or?
Yeah. It was winter break. And I was running routes on air, but I mean, it was just to prove, something, just to show something, because I had nothing to show at all. And so then I basically cold emailed 15 schools that I potentially could transfer to. And then I heard back from 2 of them. One of them was Sacred Heart in Connecticut. It's a D1 AA school.
Yeah.
And then UConn was the other one. And it's kind of strange, because I'd never, like, originally I didn't get into the program I wanted to get into, because it was like a very new program, digital media design. And they didn't accept transfer students because the program just started.
Yeah.
So I was like, well, I don't know what I'm going to do, because like, if I go to, like, what major am I going to do if I go to UConn? Like, that's the major I wanted to do, but I was like, I'll figure it out when I get there, essentially. So when the coaching staff, Coach Painter, he's the person that reached out originally, the recruiting coordinator, and I was basically offered to come to training camp. So I said yes, and was like, all right, I'm transferring to UConn. I have no idea what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
I know nobody. I don't know what major I'm going to like. I was so nervous going there. Like, I remember I got there the day before, and I have met nobody. I know nobody. And I was like, I don't get anxiety, but like, I was like freaking out a little bit. I was like, I'm just going to like walk in and to this like very overwhelming situation of like all-star football players from their like prospective towns at a high D1 level. And I know nothing like about anything, essentially, like compared to any of the.
That was so wild. Because I was like realistically thinking like, okay, you can probably maybe go like D2.
Yeah.
Like, because I'd seen guys that like were like had film, did all the right things, all those things, and then they went like D2 or D3, and I was like, okay, like. And now you're just at UConn.
I know. It was kind of a crazy story, and I've never really told it to this degree, and I'll tell more of it. I'll get into more details along the ways of this podcast, because I'm going to bring on some of my teammates from UConn that have been successful in football, and then transitioning away from football. So we'll talk about that more in a future episode. But yeah, I mean, it was basically just like once I got there, then it was just like you just gotta put your head down and figure shit out. You got to work, and you gotta. I mean, I was learning.
You're kind of learning on the job.
I was exactly like I got to training camp and I had no idea what to expect, and it was.
Oh yeah.
It was. I didn't even go through the high school training camp last time I was there. So I went to college training camp, and I'm like, this is some crazy shit. Like, I mean, I was very overwhelmed my first year for sure. And I mean, so I mean, we had some vets. We had, I think, 6 tight ends in the room. Yeah. My first year, and it evolved over the course of the 3 years that I played there. Yeah. But I just learned and kept at it, and I mean, I didn't get a ton of time even in practice, to start, but I just like did it the best that I could in practice, and went as hard as I could in the weight room, and then the film room, I just tried to soak up as much as possible. And I mean that, there's things that I've never even heard of before, flying all over the place in meetings every day, and I'm just like, what the fuck is going on? Like, what the hell's going on?
Yeah, I think that one thing that you probably stood out with is like the willingness to work, and like,
right.
So if you see a guy that like doesn't have any high school film, is out there at City College with some rando throwing him the ball, like working and sending them films, like just out of the blue, cold calling them.
Right.
They're like, okay, this guy at least, like at the very least, has like a passion to do it.
Right.
And like he's gonna want to be there, and that's extremely valuable to a team because you have a participating member. I mean, because when you get there, you're not gonna just be, oh, hey, Nick, you're starting. Yeah. Like, they're going to be like, hey, we have this guy in full scholarship. We're going to,
100%.
This is the guy that we recruited. He's going to start, or he's been starting here before.
And we had some great tight ends. I mean, our shout out Bob Diaco. Our coaching staff was from Notre Dame. Yeah. So, everyone, very tight end heavy offense. Yeah. So we had some great tight ends, Tommy Myers, Alec Bloom. Hopefully I'll get them on at some point. Tyler Davis, who is still playing tight end. So we had a lot of good tight ends. Steve, I mean, we had some other players who like bigger like linemen that came in and play like it was like a fullback. Also, we were like a fullback and tight end group.
Yeah. But a guy that's willing to work always adds value, especially when it's tough to get people who know that they're not going to probably play that first year,
right?
Or in the short term, to get them to be inspired and give you hard effort and practice, because ultimately what that's going to give is a good look for the defense. Correct. Or the offense, or whatever position you are. So it's like that does add value. So if you're not necessarily getting the looks that you want, if you show that you have like a significant passion for the game and are willing to work, that goes a long way with making a team. That'll get you in the door. At least.
100%. 100%.
You got to do other stuff from there, but that'll help out.
Yeah, exactly. And I never complained. I did the dirty work. I went to all the early lifts that all the non-travel guys went to. I did. I earned my way onto that team.
Yeah.
And over the course of my college career, I became a good player through learning and doing everything in practice, going against a bunch of players that are now in the league. Yeah. We had a ton of good talent on there. We had a top 25 defense. Every year Bob Diaco was there. We went to
Byron Jones on that defense.
Yeah, no, we had a lot of good players. Foley Fatukasi. We had really good secondary, Andrew Adams, Obi Melifonwu, and so we had a lot of good talent on the team, and I love the experience there. And, it's interesting enough. So working your way into something like that, it kind of mirrors like trying to like get a job or in like a certain company or like, something like that. Same with, so the other thing was, getting into my major. So, I mean, I went there not having a major essentially. I was just like general, like CLAS. I was just general. I didn't have a major. And so I went there and I had gen eds that I had to do. So I did those the first year. And I spent that first year like literally emailing the head of the department and like requesting interviews and like
same thing that you did to get
exactly the same thing. And if you show that you're passionate about it and you put in the work, whether you're the most talented person or not, it doesn't matter. And they didn't accept transfer students. And I mean, hopefully I'm allowed to say this, but they did accept me at some point, but because I, went into the major. So, that took a year through that. And that was, that was another thing. I mean, this is a recurring theme, like same with, high school football, I didn't know. You just throw yourself if you are dedicated to something and you work hard and you can literally do anything that you want to.
Pretty much. Yeah.
I mean, that's what I've done my entire life.
I mean, within reason. Like,
within reason. Yeah.
Like, if you're, you don't have a right arm, you can't throw a football. If you don't have arms, you can't throw a football. Right?
Well, that's true.
I mean, at some point, you have to kind of be realistic about things. Right. But yes, the level of work that you give and the level of passion that you have will significantly increase the chances of your success at doing that.
And you have to have self-awareness. If you know it's like physically not possible for you to do something, then great. But if you have the heart and with a lot of work, you can get somewhere and you can master something and you can do it.
Yeah.
And, thinking about everything in the world, everything is made by humans. So, I mean, like, we can all do the same shit that we see everywhere.
Some guy somewhere was passionate about plumbing.
Yeah.
And then there was a need for plumbing, and then someone
and then we just like piped a house. Like they're just like, all right, we got to put a bunch of pipes in a house, and So I know that was kind of going on a lot of tangents. So we're gonna hop back to Nolan. So toughest part of like sports and life up to this point. It can be maybe a lesson that you've learned that's very difficult. Any like takeaways that come to mind?
I think the toughest part of sports is being honest with yourself. Sometimes your self-evaluation's right, but sometimes you have to face the harsh reality that you might not just necessarily be good enough at that time to start or whatever, and so like, I guess for me it was like and it's initially like you don't want to accept that you're not good enough to do something at that time, but you have like a Division I starting quarterback ahead of you who's gonna go play at Cincinnati and gonna win Boy Island. Sorry, spoiler alert. But it's like, in the moment I'm like, no, it forces you to like deal with reality. Like, oh no, I'm not good enough right now to do this. And it forces you to be honest with yourself, because until you are honest with yourself, you're not going to make progress, right? Because if you can't come to grips with the fact that you just aren't good at this and therefore you can't do this, you can't achieve what you want or be in a position that you want, you're never going to make that progress until you figure out, until you come to grips with that. Because then once you come to grips with it, you can start working on those things that are going to get you to that point. But, I would say that that's kind of the hardest part, is to accept your own flaws and your own, problems that you have, and then to work from there.
So self-awareness. Yeah.
Self-awareness is probably the hardest part.
Yeah. I mean, it's very difficult. So, I mean, again, the sports and life thing, we're going to kind of reflect on how they relate to each other. And self-awareness in life is a super important thing, because if you are stuck in a job that you hate doing, if you know, whatever your circumstance may be, you have to look yourself in the mirror every day, right? And you got to figure out what is your purpose? Why are you here? What makes you happy? There's a lot of different important things that you need to figure out. Otherwise, you're not going to like live to your fullest potential. You're not going to be successful to your fullest potential. So, I mean, there's a lot of, you know, things that have to come into alignment, and you have to come in alignment with yourself. And, but having self-awareness is tough for a lot of people.
Yeah. I mean, I think sports provides a way to have it materialize or make it tangible.
Right. It's a direct thing that you can see. It's like yes or yeah, exactly. It's a yes or no thing. In life, it's a lot of over long periods of time, patience. You see things play out. But so, you know, the lessons that and the same principles that you take from sports, you go into life. But in sports, you see it immediately. You know, you have a season coming up, like you have a game, like you know, it's a tangible thing, yes or no. Like you can see,
and it ends up
as a result,
just manifesting itself in like a win and a loss.
Right. As a result,
like you can literally say, "Hey, we weren't good enough to win." Like you know, and so it's like, it's very tangible. It's hard. Like school in a way does it too, but it's like kind of hard to when you're like in class, right? You're you know, I'm thinking of just like high school or whatever. It's not necessarily, I mean, you could view it as a competition if you're going for like an award or something, if there's one of them.
Right.
But like the most people who get into class are thinking, you know, I'm not competing against the guy to my right or the girl to my left.
You versus yourself.
It's, but it's not as tangible because they're like, you know, there's not like a win. There is a grade at the end of the day, but like, people aren't necessarily thinking about that when they're in class. But sports is like, hey, you will lose this game.
Direct correlation. So and that's why I think it's more important, because you can see the direct wins and losses, and it's very clear cut, right? Like if you like on a single play, you're going up against somebody else who got the better of you. You either lost or you won your matchup.
Yeah.
And then you can take that feedback and quantitatively, like, you know, and then look at it and then, you know, do better next time. The lines blur a little bit when you get into like real life, because there's a lot of different factors. There's ambition. There's what are you doing? Like there's a lot of different things that, like what's your goal? There's a lot of different things that aren't as clear cut.
Yeah. It's harder because so sports is basically an extreme example of, you know, the fact that you need to be self-aware in order to grow and it's harder to understand that, like, let's say if you're going for like, I don't know, a position at a company or whatever, and you have a bunch of people applying for a position and you're one of them, and you might just think that, well, you know, it wasn't, you know, your first thought might be not that I need to work on myself to get better.
Right.
It might be that, well, you know, the probability was not in my favor because there was 100 people applying for my job. Right. And maybe they just took somebody that they knew, or, you know, in reality, you know, it could have been, I mean, not to say that that's not true, that does happen, but in reality, it could have been, if you had more tangible examples prior to that job throughout your life, such as if you played sports, your first thought might be to be, okay, well, what can I change about myself, rather than what could have changed about the situation around me. Right. Because ultimately the situation around you is going to always exist. That, you know, there's going to be people competing with you at those, you know, 100 people at that job application or whatever, but you can only control what you can control. Exactly. And so the first thing that you can do, the first line of logic should be, what can I change about myself for next time? And that requires that you be intellectually honest with yourself.
Right. Right.
And sports provides that in a very
sure.
tangible way.
For sure. And it provides the adversity. It provides a lot of learning lessons. And again, it's not what you do, but it's what you do in reaction to something. It's what you do next. It's your next thing that is the most important, because you can only control what you can control. You can't. There's a lot of different factors in sports and life that you can't control. So perseverance is, key. And it's anybody that's been successful went through a ton of losses.
Yeah. Except for me. I every time's knocked it out now.
Yeah, I mean, so everybody's gone through a billion losses to get to the level of success that they've been at, and every loss is a stepping stone to, one step forward, one step forward, one step up.
Yeah, as long as you're learning and self-aware.
Exactly.
Because if you're not, then it's just a loop.
Exactly, and you can't be delusional. You got to be real with yourself. You got to be real with, your teammates, whether that be your family, your loved ones, your significant other, your teammates on an actual team. So there's a lot of different teammates that, everyone has in life. And, if they're not helping you along, if they're not pushing you forward when you have your downs and ups, then, you won't get to where you're trying to get to.
Ultimately, yeah. I mean, I would say,
it'll hold you back. It
will hold you back.
Yeah.
If life isn't, I don't think life's white and black personally.
No, it isn't.
So yeah, you might have a person that is holding you back, but they might be a loved one and you might need to be the one that's pushing them forward.
Yeah.
So,
yes. So there's a lot of facets to it.
So you kind of have to make that decision on, over time,
For sure.
within reason. Like everything's got to be within reason. You can't just I'm not just going to go and look at the list of all the people in my life. Gone, you're fired, you're fired, you're gone, you're gone. Adding you in.
100%.
There's loved ones in there that
That's right. And that's a thing. So loved ones, you don't pick, you pick your friends, you don't pick your family.
Yeah.
Right. So if you have family members or anybody that's not good for your development or things of that nature, they're still family. So, you still have to be around them to some degree, but you can just control the amount of time and energy you output to because
that you allocate to them.
That you allocate to that, essentially. And you just have to control that and be aware and understand it and be okay with that. So again, it goes back to self-awareness. So I know we kind of got on a few tangents, but
I think in the macro, you kind of have to look at all those people and all of them in your life, and then look at it and say, okay, am I getting a net benefit from everybody? And if you are, then it's hard to calculate all this, right?
Yeah.
But if you're getting if you feel like you're getting net benefit, then you're in good shape overall. And then if you look at other people, if you look at it and you're saying you're getting a net negative from your current allocation of time, energy, all that sort of stuff, then it's time to make a change somewhere.
Right. Absolutely. And it's always a fluid thing. There's, many different areas you have to be real and evaluate. And that's why, being real with yourself and self-awareness is huge, because you have to evaluate things in real time. And if you're not going to be real with yourself, who is,
Yeah.
All right. So transitioning to the last kind of athletic thing that we've done. So after college, we both stopped playing football. A few years ago, I decided to run my first half marathon.
That was nuts.
And so it's Pier to Peak, so in Santa Barbara. It's quote unquote the world's hardest half marathon because it's all uphill. It's 4,000 feet elevation.
Yeah, it's got the most severe elevation change
for
any
half marathon. Yeah. So I just with everything else, I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna throw myself in and do it. So I'm not a runner. I'm football build, So that was my last learning experience, and then I kind of started to love running a little bit. It's a love-hate thing. Like, you hate to do it, but it's you versus yourself. It's, you know, it's kind of a metaphor because, you know, you're literally taking one step forward at a time, and it's a lot mental, you know, it's a lot of mental toughness and fortitude, and like your body will keep going if your mind pushes it forward way further than you think it will.
Absolutely.
I mean, I think that saying's like, when you think you're done, like you're 40% done or something like that.
Yeah, there's
some percentage. Yeah, I don't know specifically, but
the general truth. I mean, the general statement is true.
Yeah, exactly. So, so I got into that, and then we did another half marathon where Nolan ran his first, which was unconventional. Not a runner. Nolan hates running. He tell us your experience with that a little bit. It was you didn't train, like you weren't like on the most conventional training plan. You kind of just like did it.
Yeah, I mean, so I just didn't train, quite simply.
That's the conventional training plan.
And didn't necessarily take it that seriously.
Yep.
I think that what you were talking about earlier with, you know, when your body's telling, whatever you said, it's like when your body, or you think that you're at your max potential, you actually have some more capacity there. That rang true in that because I just didn't train. I was also a little bit hungover.
He drank the previous night.
Not feeling the best. Thankfully, I had great people around me.
Right.
I had a great, you know, still do have a great girlfriend that was like, nope, you're getting up and running because you committed to doing it.
Yeah, we had to get up.
I went and did it. We got up 5 a.m.
5 a.m. and we drove to
and ran it.
White country.
I was like, you know, I was like, I'm feeling in pain right now. But the only way to make this pain end is
by finishing.
By getting there as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, that's how I'm gonna do it.
It was honestly,
it was a mental game. My body was failing.
Right. It was impressive. So for never not training at all, and him going, like, you being able to get over that mental hurdle during something is a tangible physical thing that you can take away. Yeah. Because you know you can do more. Like, you know that you did it. Yeah. And you know you can do more now.
Yeah.
You know?
Absolutely. Yeah. So, I mean, if I'm ever faced with that situation again, I'll
probably
know.
Not.
Probably not. But like, you can apply that. You can see how that can easily apply to like other situations.
Yeah, exactly. You think that you're at your max, or you're tired or whatever, but you're actually, you can keep going.
Yeah.
So, I mean, yeah, I guess. So what was, I mean, like, you obviously didn't love it, but I mean, you must have had some positive takeaway from it.
Yeah.
Overall.
I mean, the positive takeaway was like, well, you know, I had been out of sports for a while.
Yep.
And I was like, and honestly, when I'd get to the gym and stuff like that, you know, I was always I didn't feel like I was necessarily pushing myself to that level of exertion to where I was where I was wondering if I'm at full potential.
Yep.
And whether I still had it in me to like overcome certain things mentally
at the gym. Yeah.
And so after that, I was like, oh, I still have some ability to push myself through pain, basically. And I think it's important for everybody to sort of push themselves and do things that they don't necessarily love. Because here's the reality about life. Everyone says, do what you love. And that means something, and it's realistic. Like, I mean, it's not realistic. And yes, it's a good value, but like, the reality is that there's jobs that we can all think of that nobody loves being, I mean, maybe there's one wild guy out there or girl that just wants to be the best McDonald's cashier ever. Sorry, but nobody loves that. Nobody is passionate about that, but they may have a greater goal, and you sometimes have to do things that you
make
hate,
sacrifices,
that you do not like, to get things that you love.
You make sacrifices.
Absolutely.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's big. I mean, you see it all the time in life. I mean, you're not just immediately doing what you love to do all the time.
First week of basketball, first week of football, hell week of football.
Yeah, it sucks.
You don't love running 300s or whatever you're doing. You don't love that. You're like, oh, nobody wakes up that morning and says, oh man, I just want to put myself through a hell lot of pain. But in order to do the thing that you love well, which is playing the game,
right,
you've got to put yourself through something that you might even hate.
Right. And so, I mean, that's why experiences like playing college sports and things that, at a high level are great for this, because like you've been through really hard things. Like I remember like from college football, like some of our workouts were crazy.
Yeah.
Like
you showed it to me. I mean,
yeah. So I mean, me knowing that I've got through that and the grind of the 2-a-days and everything, like running, like it's piece of cake, right? I mean, like, you get tired and shit, but like,
but that gave you a mental edge over somebody, because most people like don't make it to that level or do that level of work and don't understand what those workouts are like and what really goes into being a college football player.
Right.
So it's like when they're running a marathon with you, and let's say some people just run it for fun, but like some people who are trying to be competitive,
right,
like a lot of people don't understand what it takes to get to that level, and like just because they aren't doing it, it's
right.
I don't know what it takes to be CEO of Tesla.
Yeah, I mean, there's only one guy that knows that. But we got to get him on the podcast eventually.
Yeah. Elon, if you're listening, look how like self-absorbed I sound right now. If you're listening, Elon,
maybe episode 100. Maybe once we get to 100, then he'll be open to coming on. But I mean, it's you learn by doing, and you don't know that you can push yourself until you do it. And then, once you get past a certain barrier, then it opens up a lot of doors. Yeah. And you're able to do things. You can do things because you remove the mental block. Yeah, it's physically tough and it's hard and it's difficult. But if you want it and you want to get somewhere, then you'll make it happen,
Yeah.
All right. So transitioning to the last kind of segment, just a couple questions, quick questions, don't have to be crazy long answers, that we'll ask everybody. So now, do you have a favorite sport and why?
I think
it could be 1A, 1B, but it's like more referring to 1A. Like what's
it's got to be football for me, just because
the experience.
I think that ultimately, I think it's the most representative of life. I think
for sure,
in terms of in football, there's a lot out of your control.
Yep.
And it takes a lot to get everything going. Like everybody's got to do their job,
physically demanding, mentally demanding.
Everybody needs to do their job, and it's similar to like a business, like where it's like if if you don't have people at your business or whatever doing their job correctly, everybody pays for it, and it's just not going to work, right? Like you have, let's say you have manufacturing and QA and delivery and all that sort of stuff, and if guys aren't doing their job in QA or girls, and they're not sampling or whatever, and doing their job, and ultimately you're sending out bad product to somebody, that point in the process of the development of the product or whatever, it's all for nothing because that one part didn't do their job, where you need everybody to do their part in order to score a touchdown or know. I mean, you can compensate, I guess. You'll see some guys like compensate for other people's mistakes, but like in general, like you need everybody. Most people need to be doing their job to like make things work, and so I like the whole, because of that. You have to come up with strategy to like account for that.
Chasing perfection in an imperfect world, basically.
And so I think it's like the ultimate. I think it's more team oriented than all the sports,
100%.
all the other sports, and 100%. I think I just appreciate that aspect of it and the strategy. The part that is like that makes me kind of like basketball sometimes is the improvisational and the individual part of it.
Right.
Because
there's more of that.
The individual, if you just look at it from like a numbers perspective, like there's 5 players on your team.
Yep.
You're one of them. And then in football, you're one of 11. So just even from just like a numbers point, you have more of an impact in football as an individual. And there is just a more improvisation to basketball than football. Football is much more structured.
Right.
But I think if I had to look at it all as a whole, I like football more.
Yeah. Agreed. That's mine as well. Even though we like a lot of sports. Basketball, golf, the whole deal. So favorite player growing up that made you want to play. So I guess we'll refer to football. I know the answer already, but
Peyton Manning.
Yeah. I mean, the way he meticulously went about the game and learning and understanding everything and being mentally ahead of everyone. And
well, I mean, because if you look at him, right, if you look at his arm strength, I mean, so I think that he could probably, I watched like if anybody is into football, like the level that we are, like go out there and look up NFL QB competition farthest throw. He threw it pretty far in that. It was like 60. I mean, he went to multiple competitions, but like, Brett Favre throws the ball 75 yards, and I think he was slightly into the wind. If he really, if he's cranking it out, he could probably throw 80 yards. Peyton Manning was much more like when he was at his strongest, like maybe 68 yards would be as far as he could throw it. Yeah. He didn't have a cannon as per se. Like Mahomes throws it, to give you context, like 85 yards right now. Yeah. Rodgers throws it around 80 yards. Yep. Like those guys are, and that makes a significant difference. So like he approached it more from a cerebral aspect, timing, accuracy, all these different types of things. And I just enjoyed that part of it.
Yeah.
And so that's why kind of I liked him, because he revolutionized the game in a way that nobody really had ever done. And before that, I mean, that's why it's a revolution.
Yeah.
It's never done
well,
before.
And it was, and he brought improv into the game, because when you've watched so much film, and same with Tom Brady, but like when you watch so much film and you understand what the other team's going to do, what to do in real time and change things up. There's just so many different facets.
He changed the game pre-snap and
exactly. Audibles, and there's a lot of different
things. Just going to no huddle and just calling it right there. I mean, I think even they were at one point, their system was like, they basically got called in 3 plays and he could choose between those 3 interchangeably. And then ultimately he could do something completely away from those 3, the 4th option, whatever it was. But
yeah. All right. So Masters going on right now. What do you think? Scotty Scheffler has a 5-shot lead.
What's he at right now?
-8. He hasn't started today yet.
What's Tiger at?
Tiger's at +3. So it looks like it's a rough day out there. Today. Yeah. So I mean,
or did he finish at +1 yesterday?
Yeah, he finished at +1 yesterday.
So he's +2 today.
So he's +2 today. People are coming back though, so I guess it'll depend on how Scotty plays today. So I guess we'll see. DJ is up there. Justin Thomas is at -2. So you never know. Going in Augusta, anyone within a 5-shot radius has a chance.
Yeah, I mean,
going into Sunday.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think Scheffler's going to maintain that level of play.
Right. It'd be very difficult.
2 more rounds.
Right.
That's hard to do.
Yeah, especially when the conditions get more difficult.
People generally fall back.
And that's what's happening. And he hasn't teed off. He's the last one to tee off today, obviously, because he is.
Who's like the next guy after that? Like
Dustin Johnson, Cameron Smith.
-2, -3.
-3, yeah. So 5 shots. So I mean, it'll depend on the round a day, but if there's a 5-shot radius tomorrow, someone could have a shot. So we'll see.
I mean, Tiger's kind of doing the mental thing out there.
Yeah, he overcame a lot just to play this week, and that he's playing competitively is a win for him. I mean, he wants to win the tournament, and he made the cut. You know what I mean? Where a lot of long list of guys that didn't make the cut. Yeah. I mean, Brooks Koepka, Bryson DeChambeau, Jordan Spieth, all didn't make the cut. I mean,
Phil didn't even make the tournament.
Well, that's a different conversation. But But it'll be exciting to watch. We're definitely golf fans, so I'm sure we'll be watching that tomorrow. What about last question? Favorite TV show? Do you have a favorite TV show right now, or in general? By the way, we're gonna split screen this. He is dressed as Hopper from Stranger Things. I'm gonna show if you're watching on YouTube. Sorry if you're on the podcast, but go to our YouTube, and I'm gonna split screen it. It has the exact same shirt as Hopper. He's got the stash.
This pathetic excuse of a stash has been grown for this moment.
It was built for this. So that's Stranger Things. Stranger Things coming out.
It's a good show.
soon.
I mean, I do like it. I liked the first season.
First season was the best for sure.
And now it's kind of at some point it's been kind of hard to follow like what's going on exactly, and like some of it doesn't like make sense because it's like, okay, you live in this small ass town, and like all this crazy shit's happening. You got monsters that are like tall as hell walking around. And like there's a secret lab and like all this weird stuff's going on, but somehow everybody else is just completely ignorant,
completely normal, yeah,
except for you guys. And it's like these
No one else
band of
knows.
kids that are leading the way, and like some degenerate cop, which is what I am.
Not very realistic.
So, but I mean, so it's hard for me to now get past that. Like first
I
season,
know.
I'm like, okay, I can see it. But
Well, so the fourth season, there's two fourth seasons basically. There's part 1, part 2 coming out in May, end of May. So we'll see then. But what, like, do you have a
favorite show?
just in general? It could be. It doesn't have to be like a series, but it could be. Anything pop to mind?
I think I gotta go with the. That's tough. I think I gotta go with the Tim Dillon show.
Tim Dillon. Yeah, that's
Super funny. It's
you're
not
you're
a
what,
TV series.
No, it's
but
he. Tim Dillon is a comedian and he's a really, really funny guy. If you haven't watched him, he's a
pretty wild podcast. Not
is
for
wild.
the faint-hearted.
Yeah, no, it is comedy, so it's not for the faint-hearted for sure.
Not for the faint-hearted. You have to be able to. Your personal beliefs will be attacked.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, he goes crazy, but
So
he is a funny
find humor in it.
He's a funny dude. He is a funny guy for sure.
What about you?
You know, I don't know. I've been into, so I used to like watching FBI shows.
Yeah.
So there's this series, FBI Most Wanted, and FBI International. They're on Paramount Plus and CBS. It's basically about this like FBI like group office in New York, and they like get these crazy cases and in like real time have to put a lot of pieces together and solve different things and then go find people and then I mean there's just I like that action of it, so I think it's interesting. So and I really like that show a lot. I don't get into
I thought you were
TV
going to
shows.
say the D'Amelio show.
TikTok, oh boy, we'll get into TikTok at another
Are you
time.
on TikTok?
Different podcast. Yeah, for sure. We'll this will be on TikTok as well.
Content.
By the way, content. Shout out to everyone watching this on TikTok right now. I'm gonna cut this clip out and shout out on TikTok. We love you guys. But all right, so what's next for Nolan? This is the final question before we wrap things up. Half marathon? You thinking about it again? Are you just? I mean, you're kind of. I know you like lifting and things like that. Is that kind of where you're gonna stay? You're gonna do anything else?
I mean, I lift a little bit,
play some sports.
play some sports. I mean, I've been playing golf.
Yeah, I love golf.
Maybe some pickup basketball now that COVID's kind of coming to
Right.
what seems to be an end.
Yep.
Seems like more people are starting to play pickup again, which I'm all for. That's one good thing about basketball is you can go play pickup. It's hard to
Anytime.
go play pickup.
Pick a football. It
Football.
doesn't work.
Although I did play some pickup football on Thanksgiving.
Oh, like turkey bowl type stuff.
So I was asked to go. I didn't read it. I didn't read the text properly, but someone was like, "Hey, do you want to go play pickup at LaCumber Junior High? Pickup football." I'm thinking it's gonna be tag. It was tackle.
It was tackle.
It was tackle.
Oh my gosh, that's
So
wild.
I'm gonna probably lift. Keep lifting. I do just enjoy throwing the football around.
Yeah.
It's just something that I'm just fascinated with.
Yeah.
I'm fascinated with the movement
Yeah.
itself, and a little bit of tennis.
Yeah. Yeah, tennis too. I know I haven't played tennis in a long time. All right, so we're gonna wrap the show up here. Nolan, he is you're what you do professionally. You're basically like a business analyst. Right?
Yeah, that's my official title.
Business analyst. So I mean, you analyze. If you want to just sum it up really quickly.
I mean, pretty much it is problem solving for a business. There's a problem, I come up with a system or process to solve it, report and analyze data, make suggestions for the sales team, make suggestions for basically prescribe options and things to do for operations.
Cool.
Yeah.
Sweet. Awesome. And Nolan did attend the University of Nevada, Las Vegas. After
Stanford on the Strip, baby.
Stanford on the Strip. I don't know who calls it that. Apparently someone calls it that.
Me.
Someone.
You heard it here
no,
first.
No.
You heard it here first.
UNLV is now called Stanford on the Strip.
Yeah. Well, when I got there, they decided to change it because they said that nobody had ever seen a man of this intellect before on that campus of this stature, and they just decided to coin it after that.
Oh, God. All right. Well, we thanks for being on the podcast. It was fun. Everyone listening and watching. Hope you guys enjoyed. There's a lot more to come with the podcast and everything in general. In terms of release schedule, we're going to try to do it every 2 weeks. So we'll kind of see how that evolves. But this is going to be the first episode. Then we'll have 2 weeks later the next episode, which I think the second one will release on a Monday. The first one will be released on a Friday.
Can I just plug myself?
Yeah,
quick?
Plug. Go.
If you need to find me anywhere, I will be on the cover of any Sports Illustrated magazines or Playgirl magazines. You can find me there.
So we'll have him on again at some point, and maybe he'll guest moderate some other podcasts with people.
Oh yeah.
So this won't be the last time you guys see
go
him.
Deep. We'll go record deepness. Baby.
Yeah, record deepness. So if you guys have any questions or feedback, feel free to email us at the podcast teammates at lenk.media. It will be in the description of all platforms. Feel free to email us and give us your thoughts, any feedback, questions. Again, thanks to Nolan.
Thanks for having me, man.
Yeah, it was fun. And thanks for listening, everyone. And we'll see you in the next one.
Would you look at that? The episode is already over. Thank you so much for listening. We really appreciate it. Send any comments, thoughts, questions, or feedback to teammates at lenk.media. That's teammates at lenk.media.